Hey everybody, it's Damon from Guitar Journey here, and today in this short video we're going to get you started playing modes. And there's only one thing you need to get started, and that's a simple scale like this. It's a simple C major diatonic scale. You may already know it, and if you don't worry, because in the description below I'm going to include a link to a downloadable PDF of this particular scale. Now, just to be clear, if you know a different C major scale fingering, I mean, that's totally fine. It really doesn't matter which fingering you use. I like that fingering, but there are plenty of others. As long as you know a simple major scale, a simple diatonic major scale like I just played, you can get started playing modes today, and here's how. I want you to accept a very important, very foundational concept. And I'm going to use the key of C major as an example. C major is an easy key to use for examples because the notes in C major, just C, D, E, F, G, A, B, no sharps, no flats. So it's pretty easy to work with. The fundamental concept that I want you to accept is that those 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, are not found only in the key of C major. You might know this already, but those same 7 notes are also found in the key of A minor. So if you're going to be soloing in the key of A minor, you can use that very same scale fingering that I just did, and it will work extremely well. C major and A minor are not the same keys, but they do consist of the same notes. And because they have the same notes, we call them relative keys. We can see that they're lined up with each other on the circle of fifths. Now, you might be wondering, well, if the notes are the same, then what really determines whether what I'm doing is C major or A minor? Different people will give you different answers on that. You know, some people will say, well, if you start on the C note, then it's C major. If you start on the A note, then it's A minor. To me, that's not a very satisfying answer, and it's not a very complete answer. In my view, the real answer about whether something is going to sound like C major or whether it's going to sound like A minor kind of depends on 2 things. First, when you're using the scale, let's say in your soloing, if you tend to emphasize more C notes, then yeah, it might end up sounding more like C major. If you tend to emphasize more A notes, maybe resolve a phrase to an A note, it's probably going to end up sounding more like A minor. But even that's not a totally complete answer. Really, in my view, the biggest factor that determines whether that same series of notes, you know, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, sounds more like C major or more like A minor is what's going on with the chords of the song. What we might call the harmonic foundation. That's really just a fancy way of saying the chords underneath, the chords that we're soloing over. If I happen to be playing that same scale over a chord sequence that goes like C major to F major to G7 back to C, pretty much everything I do is going to sound like C major. There's really no way it won't. But by contrast, if I'm using that scale fingering over, let's say, a chord sequence that goes A minor to D minor to E7 back to A minor, then yeah, that very same scale fingering is going to sound like A minor, not C major, and there's not a lot I can do to change that. The chords underneath cause our ear to identify either C as home bass or A as home bass. Now, if you're not comfortable with this discussion, I have a whole video on understanding relative keys, the difference between, let's say, C major and A minor like we're talking about today. And I'm going to put the link to that video in the description below. And I really do encourage you to watch it carefully to help you understand what we're doing today. But if you are comfortable with that idea, the basic idea that the chords underneath cause our ear to identify, like we've been talking about, either C as home bass or A as our home bass. And if you're comfortable with the idea that that same series of notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, can be either C major or A minor, if you're comfortable with those ideas, then getting started with modes is going to be really easy. You know why? Because that same series of notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, is not only C major or A minor, but it's also D Dorian. It's also E Phrygian. It's also F Lydian. It's also G Mixolydian. It's also B Locrian. And if we can have a chord sequence that, you know, pulls our ear towards C as being home bass, or a different chord sequence that pulls our ear towards A as being home bass, then similarly we can have a chord sequence that pulls our ear to D as being home bass, or F as home bass, or whatever. It really is that easy. If you can improvise a little bit using, you know, this C major scale like I've been playing, you can also improvise in the key of A minor, and you can also improvise in the key of D Dorian and E Phrygian and so forth. the same series of notes, I'm really emphasizing this, the same series of notes, if the chords make our ear think that C is home bass, it's going to sound like C major. If the chords below make our ear think that A is home bass, it's going to sound like A minor. But if the chords underneath make our ear perceive D as home bass, then it's going to sound like D Dorian. If the chords underneath make our ear think E is home bass, then it's going to sound like E Phrygian, and so forth, okay? Same series of notes. Whichever one of these notes we make sound like home bass, then it's going to sound like that given mode. Okay, so for example, today, really quickly, I'm going to play over a jam track that orients around a D minor chord. And you're going to hear that when I'm using that very same scale fingering that I've been using in this video, my improvisation isn't going to sound like C major, nor is it going to sound like A minor. It's going to sound a little different. Specifically, it's going to sound like D Dorian. So that was D Dorian. And very quickly, I'm going to play over another jam track that focuses around an E minor chord. And what you'll be hearing, even though I'm going to be playing the very same scale fingering, it's not going to sound like C major, it's not going to sound like A minor, it's not going to sound like D Dorian, it's actually going to sound like E Phrygian. And my last example, because I'm trying to keep things pretty brief today, I'm going to play over a jam track that focuses around an F chord, and what I'm going to play is going to sound like F Lydian. When I listed the different modes a moment ago, did you happen to notice the order in which I stated them? This is really important. If you want to play modes, you must be able to recite them in this specific order. Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, okay? Now, there are 7 modes and there are 7 notes in the scale we're talking about today, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. I must list the modes in that specific order that I did. And therefore, if I can do that, your takeaway is this. If I can play C major, I can also play D Dorian, E Phrygian, F Lydian, and so forth. Using those same 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, if the chords pull my ear to a certain one of those notes and make it sound like home bass, then I'll be playing that given mode. By the way, a little bit of terminology, super quick. Ionian is just a fancy term for the major scale. So if we say we're playing C Ionian, we're playing C major. Aeolian is just a fancy term for the natural minor scale. So if I'm playing A natural minor, I'm playing A Aeolian, okay? In any event, one last time, the order of the modes: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. 7 modes corresponding to 7 notes of a major scale. Here's your thought process. Pretend you want to play in D Dorian. You say to yourself, okay, D is the second mode. Well, since Dorian is the second mode, Dorian is the second mode. I want to improvise in D Dorian. I must ask myself, of what major scale is D the second scale degree? And of course the answer is C. One more example. Let's say my song is in the key of F and I want to use F Lydian for my improvisation. Then I have to say to myself, Lydian is the 4th mode. Therefore, if I want to play an F Lydian, of what major scale is F the 4th scale degree? And the answer once again is C. C, D, E, F, as we've been saying. Okay? Quick warning, playing modes is great, but I really want to emphasize that the chords you're improvising over have to call for that given mode. That's a tricky topic. It's a deep topic, one we'll get into in a future video. Long and the short of it is you can't just take any chord sequence and just sort of that happens to be in a given key and say, oh yeah, I'm going to use whatever the heck mode I want to, okay? We need to have a concept called chord scale compatibility, which is just a fancy way of saying the chords need to work hand in hand. They need to be compatible with the scale that we're playing. Mistake a lot of guitarists make is that they just pick a random song that, for example, might be in A minor and they say, you know, I really like the Dorian mode. I'm going to play A Dorian here. And that's not necessarily going to work, okay? The chords in the scale have to be compatible with each other. As I said, that's a deep topic, one more appropriate for another video. Today is about getting started with modes, okay? A couple of quick examples that are not oriented around C major. Let's think of this. We're playing a song and it's basically in B minor. And so we decide that we're going to try B Dorian. We remember that Dorian is the second mode. So if we want to play B Dorian, we need to ask ourselves, this is the magic question, of what major scale is B, in this case, the second scale degree? And the answer is A major. A major consists of A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp. B is the second scale degree. So if I play the notes from A major diatonic scale, but with a chord sequence that pulls our ear to B as being home base, it's going to sound like B Dorian, not A major. One last quick example. We're playing a song in A minor, maybe a really dark kind of hard rock song, whatever, and we feel like we want to use A Phrygian. Do we remember which mode the Phrygian mode is? It's the 3rd mode. So I have to ask myself, if I want a solo in A Phrygian, then of what major scale is A the 3rd scale degree? And the answer would be F. F major consists of F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E. So again, A is the 3rd scale degree of F major, and since the Phrygian mode is the 3rd mode, I can use the notes from F major to solo in A Phrygian, okay? Quick point, remember that when you're asking yourself, like, what scale degree is, of what scale is this particular, remember to count backwards, okay? To find that A is the 3rd scale degree of F, I needed to count backwards, A to G to F. Don't get tripped up and go forward. When we were saying if we want to play an F Lydian, of what, Lydian is the 4th mode, of what major scale is F the 4th scale degree, I need to count backwards, 4, 3, 2, 1, F, E, D, C, okay? C major and F Lydian will end up having the same notes, okay? So that's it. There should be enough information in this video to help you get started playing modes today. Please remember, modes are a very deep topic. As I said earlier in the video, it's one thing to be able to find a mode, but it's really quite another to really be able to know that a given mode is going to be the appropriate choice over a given chord sequence, okay? All right. I hope you found today's video helpful. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask a question in the comments section of this video. And if you found today's video to be useful, please give it a like, and also please subscribe to the Guitar Journey channel. We have a ton of content here on Guitar Journey, and we're adding new content all the time. And if you really, really like today's video, please buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee at the link in the description below. And finally, please feel free to make a suggestion suggestion for a future video. You can leave that in the comments section below as well. I really welcome your ideas. Music has been incredibly good to me, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to share some of what I've experienced over the past 40 years of playing. So please hit like, please subscribe, buy me a coffee if you want to. And if you have any questions or would like to suggest a topic for a future video, definitely leave a comment. Thanks so much and have a great day.